Hello everyone. Today's video we're going to go over 3 things to think about before buying anything for our home gym. Now, if you haven't even been exercising before, you're going to need to consult your doctor first. And then I would probably suggest starting with body weight, maybe getting some bands, and maybe just starting with walks, or getting an actual gym membership before you spend any money on getting a fancy home gym, just so you know this is something you're going to stick with. You have the consistency already built in. Now, if you're sure you want a home gym, first thing to consider is going to be, well, what kind of training do you like to do? You know, are you into CrossFit? Are you into your Olympic lifts? Are you into powerlifting? Are you just exercising for general health and not necessarily for any sort of sport? All those things are going to kind of affect where your location is, what you can do, and how well this is going to work. Second thing to think about would be space. As mentioned before, training style can affect this. If you're doing bodybuilding and want lots of equipment, that's going to take up a lot of space. But even if you're doing Olympic lifting, then you're going to need space above you to make sure you're not hitting your ceiling. You need to make sure, if you're using barbells, that you have room on each side, just so you're not hitting your wall when you're trying to get the bar in and out, or if you get off-centered a little bit, or you have a bad walkout, or even just being able to put the plates onto the side of the barbell. This all takes space. The space will also affect what kind of equipment you can even get. You might be into powerlifting, but a shorter basement, well, that's going to limit the types of power racks you can get. Most power racks are 8 feet. A narrower space where you can technically fit a barbell, well, you might want to get something more like a half rack, because a half rack's easier to get a barbell in and out of than trying to get it out of an actual power rack. Third and final thing to think about would be location. Where are we going to put this gym? Are we going to put it into a spare room? That's nice. It's going to be in the same temperature as the rest of the house. But at the same time, you might run into issues of ceiling height. It might only be an 8-foot ceiling. Might affect what kind of training you can do in there. You might run into issues of it's just not necessarily a big enough room to wield a bar in. You don't want to put holes into your drywall. It can also be difficult to get a piece of equipment in there, like trying to weave a power rack through a house can be difficult. Now, in my previous house, I did have a spare room with a nice concrete floor, so that's where I wanted to put my gym. Unfortunately, it was also through a small hallway, so I had a 7-foot power rack, but it was still difficult to weave that through my house and through an L-shaped hallway to get it into that room. And if you're doing that spare room, what kind of subfloor do you have? Are you on top of a crawl space? Are you putting this on the 2nd floor? If you're in one of those situations, you might not want to be doing Olympic lifts and dropping weights onto the floor, or doing powerlifting on there, as you might destroy your floor. Worst case scenario, you go through the floor, which isn't something you want. Now, to avoid some of those problems of having it in a room with a crawl space or on the 2nd floor, if you got a basement, well, you can put it into the basement. You know, you still have kind of a room that's around the same temperature as the house. They're usually cooler, which if you live in a hotter area, is even nicer. But they do have some of their own faults. Ceilings in a basement, usually a little bit lower. They might be 8 feet if you're lucky, or if you're super lucky, they might even be a little bit taller. So once again, limiting kind of your choices. You don't have to worry about the floor as much, because it should be a concrete floor. But you are going to be, once again, limited on, well, equipment. Am I going to be able to get equipment even down in there? Am I going to be able to do all my lifts? Like, am I going to be able to do a standing press? Or am I just going to slam weights into the ceiling because the ceiling's so low? So that is something else that you'd have to think about. Now, another popular choice would be a garage. Now, if you have a garage or an outbuilding, either one of those would work as well. For me, one of the minuses of a garage is that's where I like to put my cars. I don't necessarily like putting my cars outside. I live in the Midwest. We have winters. I don't want to spend extra time trying to get my car de-iced and warmed up in the winter. We have hailstorms. I don't want my car busted up by hail. And I don't like getting a hot car in the summer. So I like parking my cars in the garage. Other people, that's not an issue. So a garage can be a great place. And nice thing about garages as well, they usually have a nice big garage door. So it's easier to get equipment in and out. You can get bigger pieces of equipment in and out of here. The ceiling, usually not as much of an issue. Ceilings in garages or outbuildings are usually a little bit taller. So you can usually fit those 8-foot power racks in there, maybe even a taller power rack. So that's a great bonus. Now, downside for the garage or an outbuilding, well, it's usually not the same temperature as your house. You have that big garage door that lets in heat or lets out heat. You know, it can be incredibly hot or be incredibly cold. This is all going to depend on your personal location and how well you do with that kind of weather. If you are not bothered at all by heat or cold, then this isn't going to be too big of a deal. If you are, then you're going to have to take some extra steps. You might have to go ahead and insulate your garage. You can do spray foam, you can do just batt insulation. It will make a big difference. We spray foamed this area of our garage. We're lucky we have an extra space on the back. And we spray foamed it, and now, well, we can use 2 space heaters in the winter. It gets this area warm enough for both myself and my wife to work out in here. And then in the summer, we're fine with a fan and a portable AC unit. So it does take some extra thought because you want to get that done before you move a bunch of equipment in here. It's just so you're not moving things around. Now, this is a home gym, so technically you can start it in one area and then move it if you want. You can start in a smaller area, and then if you get more serious or just more into this, or you want different pieces of equipment, well, you can always move out of that space. I'm just hoping that you think about that hopefully a little bit more. It's easier to start in a bigger space and grow into it than having a small space to start with and then moving all your equipment into a bigger area. Of course, that's going to depend on how much equipment you do have. That is going to kind of bring us up to the end of this video, and hopefully that gives you something to think about. If I'm missing another big thing to think about before you even start a home gym, leave that down in the comment section below. In my next video, I'm going to go ahead and talk kind of about dumbbells, the differences, and where to start with a dumbbell selection. So please subscribe if you want to see that video. And then if you found any of this helpful, please leave a like. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you soon.